Hi guys, and welcome now to part 2. Although this part 2 is a little bit different than what I had initially envisioned. There will be a part 3 and probably even a part 4. But anyway, part 2, the focus is on the Fiio FD15 and its comparison with other large diameter single DDs. The reason why I said there will be another part still is because I will then compare it with the other single DDs available at its price point roughly, although the size will be different. But all of these drivers, or all of these IEMs that I have in front of you guys here, have a peculiarity, which is they are all larger than 13 millimeter. I was going to include some 12 millimeters, namely the BGVP Melody and a few others, but then I decided myself, no, I'm just going to include the really large drivers. So I've got here the D13 from Shure, I've got here the BQ EYZ Autumn. I've got here two versions, just for the sake of, I've got different filters in them, and it was just easier. But it's just a BQ EYZ Autumn basically, which is also 13 millimeter. The FD15, which is a 13.8, the 3T154 from Ibasa, which is a 15.4, and then the 7Hz Eternal, which is no longer available, which is a 14.5. So all of them are large diameter. The Eternal is no longer available, and I think the Shure, the D13, you might still be able to find it here or there in some stores. Anyway, JD15 from Fiio. In terms of accessories, it is what we usually get from Fiio once we start passing a certain price point. So loads of accessories. This is the stock cable. It's an interchangeable termination. Loads of tips. They all work very decently. No real issue there. The only reason why I've got the KB Euro 7s is that because they are a little bit more stiffer, they actually maintain the seal a little bit better, because this is one of those kind of bullet style IEMs, a shell which they've already used previously in the FD5, if I'm mistaken, and FD7 as well. So the shell is a shell that they've had before. It's got a nice weight to it, and because the shape doesn't really help, it makes it become very dependent on what tip you use to make sure that it sits in its ear. MMCX connector, which I have to say it's not exactly my favorite, but the overall build quality and the feel of the IM is very premium. Okay, very premium. It uses the 13.8 millimeter driver, which is not related to any of the other 13.8 millimeter drivers that they've used previously. It's, from what I understand, the latest version of said drivers that they've sometimes used. It's got the adjustable nozzles, or the interchangeable nozzles, although to be honest, there's no difference between one and the other, so I've just left the stock ones again. The case is the only thing which I think is a little bit disgraceful. I mean, honestly, you know, it just looks cheap and tacky and nasty. End of story, period. Come on, Fiio. You guys can do better than this. You guys can put a nice case here. This is going to protect absolutely diddly squat. You know, a nice leather case, a nice puck case. Not this, okay? Please, not this. This just looks like a case of an IM of $10. When I saw this case, I was reminded of the case of the Hades. Okay, that was a nasty ass case. Nasty. Rather not bring any case. That's, so that's my only criticism when it comes to the accessories. Cable is very nice, actually. The cable's got a nice feel to it. It's just got a nice feel to it, nice touch. The tips, like I said, are plentiful, and they're fine as well. And the IM itself, in terms of its build quality, it's spot on. It's perfect. There's nothing to be said. Anyway, on to what you want to know, which is the sound. Okay. All of these IEMs here have been tuned in their own particular way for a large driver. The Eternal, nice gliding style of bass, within some peaks at 4 and especially at 5K, which just make, although it's got a nice appealing sound at low volumes, and if you choose your tips carefully, and if you have a nice source, it just makes the sound be a little bit, like I said previously in part 1, come across as it's fine, but there's something there that's missing. There's something that just doesn't gel, and it loses that high fineness. Okay, if that is a way of putting it, let's put it that way. The 154, I've spoken about it. You know, it's I think its problem, like I've mentioned before, is the fact that they've used a driver which is not of the best quality, and overall, and I think that was the best way of summarizing the 154. The feel I get of the sound of the 154 is I've got an enclosed or a shelled earbud. That's it. I've taken an earbud, you know, the Monk, let's put it for the sake of argument, or whatever, and I've put it into a shell, and that's that. Because that's the kind of sound that it's got. It's very mid focused, and okay, whatever. BQEYZ Autumn, phenomenal IM, one of the best IMs still that I think BQEYZ has ever made. Uses a very nice quality 13mm driver. I believe it's a DLC driver. I'm not too sure. Beautiful build quality. It's got, if you notice there, that where the hole of the vent is, okay, there, what you get is these exchangeable nozzles which change the bass level, and obviously then give it a different ratio between the bass and the mids and the upper mids and the treble, and really nice. I mean, on this particular one I'm using the bass. On this first one that I showed, I'm using the bass termination. On the other set that I've got there, which is this one here, focus, come on, this purple set, I'm using the normal. And in either way, I mean, obviously with the bass, it's got more bass, it makes it a little bit thicker sounding. I enjoy the sound in both manners, because in both ways, the way that the mids, upper mids and treble have been done, it has been very well executed, which is again very much, you know, BQEYZ, it surprises, because when you look at the graphs don't necessarily convey what you then listen to it. Sometimes you might come out thinking that, oh, the mids, upper mids are going to be a little bit too intense, a little bit, and then when you listen to it, the balance that is struck is phenomenal. And be it in this setting, which the bass is lower, or then the other one, which the bass is higher, they both sound really good, because there's always kind of the right amount of bass to mids to treble. Of the two settings, if I'm now going to be speaking on a more general kind of feel, the normal will probably be the one that will please the majority of people. Very nice bass, clean, detailed, dynamic, great mids. No peakiness, no nothing. It just the transition to the mids is very nicely done. Male, female vocals, everything. It's just got a very well executed organic type of sound, which is really nice to listen to. I mean, honestly, like I said, one of the best IMs that, if not probably still, well, I'm not going to say that. Probably one of the best IMs that BQEYZ has done. No questions asked. And then finally here, the D13. The D13 has a 13mm driver. It's got a vent here in the back. There in the back, in the middle of that red semicircles, okay? And then obviously the nozzles are also exchangeable. With the stock nozzle, it's a little bit overly forward in the upper mids. Sorry, in the pinna gain to the mid section, mids to upper mids, that pinna gain section is a little bit too forward, and can occasionally sound, I'm not going to say harsh, because that's a strong word, but it just sounds too intense. It kind of comes across as, you know, using now some comparisons to home speakers, and which I like doing. This kind of sounds kind of like a public address speaker, like a speaker for professional audio. So you're listening to some RCF you know, monitors being used in concerts, or some precision devices, or it's got that very intense, powerful sound that can with the, you know, bite you in not the nicest way. So with one of the nozzles, what I did was I added a 300, well, I put a 300 grade filter on it to tame that early pinna, and phenomenal. I actually, it's a pity that Litro didn't do that in the beginning. If they had done that, I can guarantee you that a lot more people would have liked the D13, because although it's got that bullet style shell as well, it actually fits quite nicely, because it's a relatively small shell. It's basically the size of the driver. and it is a genuinely good IM. It's a good driver, great bass. It's just that they did the tunings overly forward, overly energetic, in my opinion. They could have left one like that, and then the other one with this more mellow, which is honestly, trust me, it's a very very mild attenuation, but it made a world of difference in the overall balance of the sound, and it just sounds, incredible. And then of course the oops, this thing doesn't want to focus there. And then of course the JD15. Yeah, okay, well, let's give it kind of an overall overview, and then I'll get into a little bit more detail. I think the thing that most impresses me about the FD15 is, again, you get that very much hi-fi type of sound, which has an incredible timbre and tonality. And I would even, and when I said earlier in part one that this is probably one of the best single DDs out there, I mean this because you get that. And I don't want to mention that IM particularly now, but you get that magic of the MIM Dark Magician, but a little bit more well executed, in my opinion. You get the magic that you have in the XSL X1 with the nozzle, which attenuates the bass, the mids, up mids, and treble, which is a blue nozzle. You get that magic, but with a little bit more detail. So you get the same energy level, but more, and I think it's down to the fact that the the bass of the driver is just more well matched to the mids and upper mids and treble that it can also give out. I'm not saying that it's not the case in the case of the driver in the MIM. It is, but it is a driver, like I've mentioned before, and there's nothing wrong with it. It is a driver that is very bass and very bass, mid bass, and mid focused. The upper mids and treble are not its strong point. And that's why when you try and go and fetch more out of that particular driver in that section of the spectrum, if you are not careful, you will overdo the lower frequencies, and it will become even darker sounding. So striking that balance is not an easy thing to do, I have to give my congratulations in that aspect to Michael Bruce, in the fact that he has been able to get that balance. And do it very well. That's the reality. At least graphically, it seems like he's struck a good balance between all the frequencies. This hasn't got that problem, but it's got the same sort of style of sound as, like I said, the XSL X1, as the MIM Dark Magician. But in my opinion, in my humble opinion, and after listening to it as well for quite a long time, because I've had this IM as well for a long time, it is a better executed driver, or a better overall execution of that style of sound, and one that doesn't necessarily cost an arm and a leg. Because, I mean, and all respects to everyone that has those expensive IMs, the Turi and all those kind of stuff, and there's nothing that can justify paying 700, 1,000 something for a single DD. Nothing. The R&D that goes into that is what went into this. So, the R&D has to be paid for. I don't agree. Okay? No. To say that no, as a 6 or 700, like let's take now the soft tiers, the Twilight. Oh, because this and that, they've got a system in the front vent, or the front portion of the driver, which is a system which does makes use of the venting of the driver and recircles that venting in the same way, or in a very similar manner, as you have, for example, in the iBasso Junior, the Gelato, as you have in the R2 E3 Mermaid, as you have in the Zuleniao Z4, as you have in the Ibasso Klee, as you have in many other IEMs. So it's not like they've done something which is completely out of the ordinary. If there is something that they've done there which is a little bit out of the ordinary, is the fact that they've aligned the driver perfectly with the bore, okay, and then given it an odd shape precisely because of that. Usually that alignment, that perfect alignment of driver with the bore of the driver, is only obtained in a bullet style. Okay, this is not the case here because they've obviously given it a little bit of an angle so that it would fit nicer. But you can see that the angle here is very minimal, so it's always going to sit a little bit angled like this, like that in my ears. And yes, positioning of the driver is a determining factor, but it's not like the Twilight has anything which is absolutely out of this world and justifies it costing what it costs. No, it doesn't. And in that aspect, Fiio, you know, perfect. I mean, and they've also got some really expensive single DDs, Fiio, and you know, which I again disagree against it. But this at the $150 price bracket, 150, 160, depends on where you get it. Phenomenal. I mean, this particular unit, I got it from HIFIGO. It sounds incredible. It's got a sound which is very unique to it. It doesn't follow any particular, let's say, tendency. Okay, much like what happened with the MIM Dark Magician. When the MIM Dark Magician came out, it came out with a sound with that kind of lean bass, but it wasn't really that lean because of the driver itself being a driver that can handle a lot more bass than what graphically you would think. So it stood out in a sea of IEMs which had a more harmonist kind of tuning. And you guys know very well that, for example, I'm a huge fan of the Tensstrom Oxygen. It's one of my all-time favorite IEMs. I'm a huge fan of the Isabellai, the Audiolos, and at the time I refused to pay $600 for a MIM. I now was able to pick up one at a substantially lower price, a used unit in perfect condition, immaculate. And yes, it sounds incredible. It is a genuinely amazing IM, no denying that. And this is that, so it's got that style of tuning which departs from what is the norm, you know, of what is the more usual. And they've done it at a price which is affordable, and you know, and anyone can basically, well, not anyone, but you guys understand what I'm saying. Anyone can enjoy what it has to offer. So, bass. It's well defined, it's clean, it's textured, it's punchy, it's got more than enough low frequency when it needs to. I didn't really see any music that I like listening to that, you know, fell short of it. I mean, Magnetic Lies from Malia, or Puerto Banús by Paul Hardcastle, or Don't Know by Cloud Tram, they all had more than enough energy. But then at the same time, if I went to Acoustic by Billy Rafool, or Lonely by Hoblo Brown, I was absolutely blown away by how musical the mid-range is. It's clean, it's clear, it's got incredible vocals, amazing. Honestly, the vocals on here, well, it won't be fair if I say they are the star of the show, because I think the whole tuning is the star of the show. But the vocals here are absolutely incredible. And then the treble, it's just got that right amount of sparkle, that right amount of energy, of cleanliness, or that never is offensive to my ears, never is harsh. It almost, honestly, this is one of those IMs that you kind of question yourself, why would you buy a hybrid? Because this does what you are expecting to get from a hybrid really, really well. And I'll be very honest with you, to find a hybrid that can really outperform the FD15 without any problem, you're going to have to be spending a little bit more than what this costs, because this is truthfully a very competent. I mean, I would have to start entering, you know, like Dunu Da Vinci territory, Zigat territory, to find a hybrid that I can say, okay, this now justifies me spending this, because I'm going to be getting this extra much and that extra much, you know, the price difference. Okay, because otherwise it's not the more affordable hybrids that are going to be doing it. However, how much it pains me to say this, because I mean, there are phenomenal hybrids out there. I mean, the Anvil, for example, from Pula, incredible, incredible, really nice. There's the Let me see what else. The CKLVX, the D61, another incredible IM. So there's a lot of really competent hybrids out there, but this has, in my opinion, that magic. In terms of its technicalities, very resolving, great with the imaging. The soundstage, again, it's big, it's expansive, it's honestly, I mean, it's gonna be sounding like I'm shilling this, but this has been out for such a long time, and everybody else has spoken about it, that I honestly don't think that I'm shilling, because I really wanted to take my time in listening to the FD15 to give it a proper opinion. It is incredible technically as well. I mean, when you consider it's just one driver, it is incredible. And you take into consideration it's a big driver, because with big driver there comes some difficulties. With smaller drivers there are other difficulties. That's why usually we see 9-10 millimeters being the size being used. When you start talking like almost 14 millimeters, which is the case here of the Fiio, you have to give kudos to them. They did their job properly. They didn't just throw things together and that's it. Now, is there any? Okay, this isn't a bass monster. If you want properly executed bass in the right amount of weight for the mids and treble, phenomenal. But this isn't a bass monster. No, that's not for you then. Then there's also the question of the fact that it's let's call it as smooth as it can be, and as competent and unfatiguing as it can be. It can sometimes, with certain genres, lack a little bit of dynamism that you will want, a little bit more of engagement, a little bit more fun, something that you will, for example, get loads of in the D13. The D13 is a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more get up and go, but it lacks the polish of the FD15. And that's basically in a nutshell my opinion. I mean, I could stay here now and talk loads and complicate this review and make you listen to me for 2 hours. But the reality is this: it is an IM that there's very little that you can point at it. For the $150 that it costs. I cannot fault it in almost nothing. How can I put this? It's just it's a coming together of all the factors which I think are important, which is you have a well-built IM that looks the part, looks solid, it looks expensive, let's put it that way. It looks, and doesn't cost the world. It's well accessorized. The only issue here really is the case, and they can easily solve this issue of the case. And then thirdly, if not the most important, I mean, there's no real, but these are the three factors. It is very well tuned. In the tuning department, I would say that since they have got the two nozzles, that they could have made one nozzle a little bit more dynamic than the other, to kind of help out with those that maybe want a little bit more engagement in the music at times, but they graphed exactly the same. There's no difference. So those are the real only nitpicks. Case and the nozzle, the second one, could have had a more lively tuning. But the tuning as it is phenomenal. This is, without lack of a better word or wanting to sound, this is a modern day MIM Dark Magician. Not 100% the Dark Magician, because the Dark Magician was even a little bit leaner in the bass, although you don't really notice it because of that issue that I've mentioned already before. But it also isn't as the second version of the MIM Dark Magician was then, because that second version then lost all the polish of the upper mids and the treble at a fraction of the cost, at a quarter of the price. Compared then to the other ones that are here of this, let's say the king of big displacement, of big drivers. I mean, the Eternal, I have to give it the benefit or the merit that it was the first of these bigger ones to come out in more recent years. Although it's a pity that they didn't try to retune this. I actually offered my services, but anyway, that's another story. This retuned could have actually been quite nice. So this just walks all over the Eternal. Compared to the Ibasso, unfortunately, I have to say the same situation. They actually graph almost very similar. I'll show you now in a second, but I mean, no comparison possible. Compared to the D13, I would say, and for those of you that know home audio, you will understand what I'm saying. This is a Lowther, okay, a Lowther, or a Chorale dual cone speaker in a nice transmission line or horn loaded kind of enclosure. Sounds amazing in the mids with the proper amount of bass and treble. Nothing, I mean, it's phenomenal. This is what this is, okay? That there is a JBL studio monitor. Difficult to say which one is the better one, although for me personally, this is the better IM. Okay, because that, if it wasn't slightly retuned, no, but as it is now retuned, you know, it's two different, they complement each other. Okay, and compared to the BQ-EYZ, again, the same situation very much as the D13. Again, not so much along the lines of that, because here the mids are smoother, more well presented, and you know, the balance of everything is a little bit more well obtained. So I would say that if I was again using this analogy of a home speaker, this is like listening to a nice, let's say try to think of an old school kind of speaker that had this type of sound that you guys might recall. It's a hard one. I would say probably this is like some B&Os, some you know, early 80s B&O speakers that had that big bass to them, but everything was always very well mannered. Okay, that's what I would say this kind of sits in there. That's those JBL studio monitors, let's put it that way, and this is a Lowther or a Chorale, you know, a nice 10-inch dual cone, or even maybe you could even say, although hasn't got as much bass, but for example, the diatone drivers from Mitsubishi, they gave this type of sound where everything was very, very smooth, very polished, incredible in terms of the vocals and the extension up top, but with the benefit here that we have this very nicely done bass, very well executed bass. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful and kind of helped position the FD15. Definitely, without shadow of a doubt, one of the top single DDs out there right now, without a question. Well, right now, and I think it will be known as one of the top single DDs. All right, guys, let's follow on to another part, and then finally give you the graphs as well, because I know you guys want to see the graphs. Take care. Hey guys, I'm going to show you now the graphs for the mega size drivers. I'm going to start here with the graph of the iBasso, the 154. This is using the non-liqueur tips. Okay, and then now let's start showing the rest of them. Okay, actually, let me just quickly show you here something. Okay, this is the D13 in its stock format using one of the nozzles, and this is the D13 once I've done that small mod, and it's the D13 with this small mod that I've used. Okay, it does away with that unnecessary peak here too, and just smooths out the whole presentation. It just makes it actually, you know, this is just for your comparison, it makes it very kind of similarish to the Klee, just less energetic in the mids, upper mids and treble than the Klee, not as detailed up top as well, which is quite noticeable. And you know, it's not a the D13 it's a nice sounding driver. It sounds well especially once you've modified it. It's just got that very overly powerful sound that can sometimes, you know, not be as polished as you would like. But anyway, that's the D13 modified. That's the iBasso, the 154. I'm going to be putting out the BQ-EYZ Autumn in the purple one, which had the lower bass. Actually, so you guys can see the difference between the lower bass and the higher bass. That's the lower bass. Sorry, not this one. That's the lower bass. and this is the higher bass version. Let me align it here so you guys can get a proper perception of the difference. And that's all down to just changing that filter. Okay, and you notice that there's a difference. One is more bassy than the other. I used the purple for this comparison most of the time. It's got that nice balance there struck, as you can see. It just, I mean, really, trust me, the BQYZ is a really good IM for good reason. It's not for the sake of nothing. Okay, the D13, okay, and as I mentioned, they both end up being kind of similar-ish, but the Autumn slightly more polished, slightly more elegant than the D13. Okay, iBasso once again, and then finally where is the JD? The FD15. There we go. There we go. FD15. Kind of similar-ish in the bass, but then the execution of the mids, upper mids, and treble just flawless. Okay, and for you to now understand what I was saying earlier in the review. Okay, and I'm going to just take away all the other drivers here, all the other IMs. So we're talking about a 5 dB gain on the bass, 69. 74, that's 5 dBs, just over that, just over 5 on the mids. I mean, you can't really fault it. Now, for you to see how similar this is to the MIM Dark Magician and why I said what I said. Okay, this is the MIM Dark Magician. Okay, I think it's self-explanatory. And this next one I'm going to be putting now is the MIM Dark Magician with a little bit extra boost. Okay, a little bit extra bass boost, which is the way I have it now, basically. So that little extra bass boost. But that's the stock MIM Dark Magician, okay? And this is compared to the MIM Dark Magician driver, but in this time around in the XSL X1 with the blue nozzle, which is number 14 here. Again, a lot of similarities between all of them and the FD15. But the FD15, in my humble opinion, is the one that has achieved this particular style of tuning, and has done it the best. You know, the balance that they've struck between bass, mids, upper mids, and treble, flawless, excellent extension. Mids are to die for. Bass is in the right quantity there. I mean, you know, in the MIM, occasionally you would find it a little bit lean, although the bass driver or the driver itself is a really good driver. But yes, there would be some on the FD15. I never found that to be the case. Once, obviously, you boost the Dark Magician like I've done. Yes, you notice that the sound is very bassy, and when you actually compare it, like I said, with the blue version of the XSL, let me put it. Yeah, just change the color of the XSL so you can see the difference. Okay, so number 14. Okay, you can see how similar they actually are. The XSL, okay, blue nozzle compared to the MIM Dark Magician with a little bit of a bass increase. I've just covered basically the nozzle a little bit. I forget now what was the filter I used. It's just here in this 2K area that you still got a little bit more energy on the XSL. And this dip that you find here is very much attributed to the way the driver sits in the actual end of the shell facing the nozzle. That dictates this dip here. And because it sits in a better position on the MIM, you don't have so much of a dip there in that 4 to, let's say, 7.5, 8K area as you do on the XSL X1. Okay. And that's that, guys. I mean,